I've reviewed all the data for the Seattle Metro so you don't have to. Today we're going to talk about the predictions for 2024 for King County, Snohomish County, Pierce County, where the market's going, what we've seen, and review the data so you as an investor, a buyer, or a home seller know what to do this year.
All right, so the first question is, can you believe how much chicken nuggets cost? All right, you guys, welcome to the Anton Stetner podcast number 45. It's January 9th, 2024. Today's a special episode, especially if you're in the Seattle market, because we're doing a market update as well as some 2024 predictions. I think that every market is obviously going to be different, but even if you're not in the Pacific Northwest or the Puget Sound area, you'll still learn a few things. But today's definitely focus on Seattle Metro, and surrounding counties. So where do we want to start? What's going on in the market?
Yeah, let's just give like the super brief recap before we dig deep into the data and the details. Is the market outperformed what we thought it was going to. It appreciated more. We thought that high interest rates were going to cause prices to continue to go down like they did in 2022. So in the Seattle Metro, prices basically, as soon as Jerome Powell shoved interest rates up, prices started depreciating. We end 2022 down in a negative position, down slightly. All of 2022 is erased. And so we thought 2023 was going to be that continuation. 2023 was not that continuation. The market turned around and things changed. So low supply. We actually still did a fair amount of transactions, but it was less transactions. Investors got some amazing deals, and we still believe deal season is around. Buyers got some good deals, but the market was surprisingly hot right here at the end of December, and it's kicking off with a bang to the start of January.
Wow, yeah, and who would have thought, because we thought the next crash was coming to a certain degree. We were kind of saying that it wouldn't be a crazy crash, but who would have ever thought that prices would start going back up in the environment of high interest rates?
When we first started talking about it, it looked like this year was going to depreciate probably like 3 to 5%. Like that's what the Seattle Metro was looking like, not December of 23, but December of 22. Because that's where 22 was finishing. So it looked like where 23 was going to pick up. What happened is once rates stabilized, the market said, okay, this is okay. So what we learned is that the market responds and the consumer responds not to the actual rate itself, but to the rate of change of the rates. Because it went up so drastically, the consumer pulled back. Once they stayed higher for longer, the consumer was like, oh, this is fine. Well, let's just go buy houses.
And so I guess the next question is, what are the numbers? What's the data saying about the current market?
Okay, so this is one of those episodes where if you want to get specifics, you're going to need to skip around a little bit in the chapters because we're going to go into a deep dive here and just kind of super nerd out on the data. So the Seattle Metro is really a tri-county area. So Seattle's right in the middle. You got King County in the middle. North of that, you have Snohomish County, and south of that, you have Pierce County. So what we're going to do is first we're going to review what happened for King County, and then we're going to talk about predictions. Then we're going to go Snohomish County, predictions. Then we're going to go Pierce County and then to its predictions. And then we're going to finish up with the next item on the list is basically just an overall prediction for where the whole market is going as kind of a summary. And then lastly, what would cause these predictions to be totally wrong? Like that way we're giving our listeners both sides of the coin. We're not just being a perma bull. We're not being a perma bear. We're delivering you real data with both sides of the coin so you can be aware, because there are events that can cause these predictions to change on a dime and instantly. And that could cause prices or supply to change very quickly. And so you need to be on it, all the time, especially if you're getting ready to invest, purchase, or sell in today's market. Okay, so let's get right into the heart of it. So King County, the heart of it, the good old Seattle, the average price in May of 2022, so where we peaked, was $1,099,345. It then in December was 988,647.
So May of 2022,
Yep.
it peaked, and then almost a year and a half later is the bottom of the market.
Is
since-
still down. So it's still down from its peak.
Got
So
it.
it's down 10%, 10.6% from the peak. The average price in December of 2022, though, was $897,704. And the average price in December, so when I compared December of last year to December of this year was $988,647 and up 9.64%. So even though we haven't caught fully back up with that peak yet, the market is basically showing, hey, I've stabilized and prices are increasing. Another way to look at this is if we look at January of 2023 versus December of 2023. So January of 2023, the average price was $890,504. This December, we finished at $988,647, just under $1 million. So we appreciated 10.44% this year, and we felt like it was going to be negative. This is one of those ones, yeah, like I just rubbed my face. It hurts my head. I did not expect double-digit appreciation there in the heart of Seattle. I thought, once, even after we knew it wasn't going to be negative, I was like, we'll get like 4. We'll get like 5. So the buyer that literally said, I want to wait. I'm not going to buy in 2023 because the economy's not bad, or the economy's bad and it's not a good time to buy. It costs that average buyer $98,000 waiting. Let that sink in. That's $100,000 because they said, I want to wait. But let's look at closed sales. This is where the data gets really interesting. So real estate in our area, we are in a transaction recession. A deal closed recession, not a price recession. Prices are still going up, but the total number of transactions is down. So this year, total sales in King County finished the year at 16,584 transactions closed. In 2022, we closed 21,806. So sales were down 23.9%. Why? High interest rates, and then that lock-in effect kept those sellers from coming to the market and giving us additional supply. Also, when interest rates started shooting through the roof, we've talked about this, some of those builders started pulling back and less permits started coming on the market. So December closed sales in King County were 1,349 for the whole county. The last time we saw numbers this low was February 2011. So right at the tail end of the Great Recession was the last time King County closed this few deals. So we are in a transaction recession. There are less deals available. So yes, real estate agents are getting hurt. Title's getting hurt. Mortgage is getting hurt. There's peripherals in the industry that are getting hurt. P.S. When things hit bottoms like this is what creates the opportunity.
And usually that's the mark of the beginning of a new like way up.
Bingo. Generally speaking, like if you're thinking about the stock market, okay, or a trending data set, as soon as you come back and hit a floor, usually once it hits a floor, especially a long-term floor, usually bounces and then starts to trend up from there. As we get into the predictions, I'm going to answer the question that's in your eyes right now. So another thing to think about is closed sales are down in King County 50% since the peak in June of 2021. So we did 50% less deals in June of 2023 than we did in June of 2021. Also, what happened is what naturally happens. So there's always a seasonality in real estate, especially here in the Seattle metro. The weather turns to crap. It starts raining. It's cold. People don't want to go outside. So supply naturally trends down. Supply went and ended the year in King County at 1.3 months of supply. That is unbelievably low. 6 months is a neutral market. Above 6 months is a buyer's market. Below 6 months is a seller's market. At 1.3, that is a tough, hardcore seller's market, very little inventory. So what's our predictions? Supply will continue to be low because there's nothing coming to save us. There's not builders, there's not foreclosures. This causes prices to rise. And with mortgage rates we know are statistically supposed to trend lower, the Fed's saying they're going to cut rates. We did a whole episode about mortgage rates. What that does is that increases demand. So we're going to bet bidding wars in the spring, bidding wars in the summer, of course, then cooling off for the fall and winter. But if you're like, I'm going to buy in 2024, your ideal time is now, before the spring market really hits, or in the latter part of the year, if you like paying more. Because our prediction, and we're sandbagging it a little bit here, is that we expect the average price to go up 7% due to lack of supply and the median price to go up 5%. It just went up 10.4. So if I call 7, the odds of it hitting 7, even with because I believe the economy is going to get a little bit worse, it looks like a shoo-in. This is an easy prediction. So the average price is almost $1 million. 7% of $1 million is $70,000. So the average home in King County will cost $70,000 more by the end of 2024. We also expect rent growth to be very flat or mild. Do not expect big rent increases. Investors do not put that into your pro forma.
Don't speculate on that going up and buying based off of potential rents going up.
Bingo.
But it's already so high up.
Exactly.
Right? So why would you need it? I guess house prices are so expensive.
As an investor, what you always do in your pro forma is you throw in like a 2% or a 3% rent growth.
Got it.
It's just in the pro forma because you're trying to figure out, when I sell this, what's my return? Because it's always got some type of long-term forecast in there. What I'm saying is in 2024, you need to be very conservative on that number, because when the market lit on fire, here in the Seattle metro, we started building giant box apartment complexes, and those are finishing up this year, but there's no more in the pipeline for the next couple of years. So we believe rent growth, and this is for those of you that aren't going to listen to the end, I got to give you this golden nugget, is that rent growth in 25 and in 26 will outpace 24 and should probably outpace 23 due to the lack of multifamily supply coming, because permits and development applications are hitting all-time lows right now.
Wow.
Now we're going to pound through the next set of data. And as I'm going, my man, always feel free to ask me like whatever's rattling around your brain.
Well, I do have one question on that
hit
note.
me.
So it's good to look at historical events or experiences to kind of forecast what could happen now.
Yep.
You mentioned how a lot of the numbers match what happened in 2011. Just to recap, 2007, 2008, we start experiencing the crash. It was a few very difficult years. 2011 was basically the bottom, and then you had 10 years of appreciation. Now, that was super low interest rates, but also crazy amount of supply.
Yes.
So that's another thing that's kind of interesting. We grew, there was appreciation with a ton of supply.
Yes.
So in 2023,
Yes.
the interest rates are supposed to go down, not to those lows, right?
Yep.
How low was it in 2011? 3 and 4?
No, it was higher than that. It was probably 4.5 or 5.
Okay, so similar environment, interest rate wise. We still have to wait for interest rates to come down. There's no guarantee, but it's highly likely. But supply is super low, and it might even get worse in 2024. So think about our listeners who are listening to this, savvy investors, and then we talked about all the big hedge funds and the BlackRocks or whatever, the big investment firms. They might get a jump on it.
Oh, they're going to. So okay, let's speculate for a second. What happened that caused the Great Recession was mortgage-backed securities, the putting together of bad debt, calling it good debt, and giving people loans we shouldn't have done that. That was one part. The second part was we had overbuilt new construction because builders and developers could leverage at 100% loan to value, which neither one of those two conditions exist today. The market crashes, we print not even $1 trillion. 2012 it bottoms in our local metro, and then we go on a 10-year rip straight up.
With supply
was very high, but supply started pinching itself. So you can watch supply. Basically, I believe when the market bottomed in 2012, you can just watch it taper all the way until 2022. But let's replay this in our head just so people are thinking this same thought. What if we already experienced the recession and we experienced it twice? We experienced it during COVID and then we experienced it again in 2022. They turned on the money printers, and we've already talked about this many times. There's 13.5 trillion, so 13 times more stimulus came in to our market. This is simply a minor shelf. So we dipped down a little bit in 2022. That was your great recession of the 20s. That little drop, 1.5%, 2%. Okay, we lost all the appreciation. And then because there's no supply coming, what if it now just rips again for the next decade? Just click, 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 click. Because supply is so low, if that happens, the appreciation of the 20s will outpace the appreciation of the 10s. Do you see what I'm saying?
Totally. And I mean, this is a little bit beyond my skill level, but we know money printers create inflation.
Bingo.
Including in real estate. So highly likely that we would see appreciation anyways because of that. And we did kind of have like a little correction and then it started going up in the worst environment possible, right? In 20, 30 years, 8% interest rates. Low supply. When we first started this last rip in 2011, it was high supply and it still did that. So with interest rates dropping, low supply, logically, no matter really what happens, because people always need homes, right? And people want to get out of renting. They want to buy their house. So the 7% you mentioned is pretty conservative.
It's very.
I will say one thing, and this is why I'm curious to listen to your but what if this happens? What are the things that can derail these predictions?
Yeah.
And so if you're listening, definitely stay tuned to the end of it because I think that's really important. Because naturally, I mean, this is why economists just kind of like whatever they say, take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of things that can happen in the world, in the economy that we don't foresee. And it almost always plays out like that.
I would like to give you my best Jerome Powell. Based on the totality of the data, we will make new real estate predictions as the data becomes available. And so next month, as we review all the data, based on the totality of the data, we will tell you whether the market will appreciate, depreciate, frickin' crash, or whatever's going to happen.
That's code word for I'm not going to predict anything. Okay, guys? Okay, so let's go on to Snohomish County. So Snohomish County, Everett, Marysville, Lake Stevens, all the way to Sultan. We got Linwood in here. What's the data telling us? And then what's your prediction there?
So the data is telling us, we're going to go through the same format we did with King County. So the average price peaked in May of 2022 at $848,238. In December of this year, it was $726,206. That is 15.5% off of the peak. The average price in December of 2022 was $706. This year, $726. So it's 2.76% over last year. But
a little bit less than King County's appreciation.
A little bit less. Yeah. And then the thing to think about King, Pierce, and Snohomish is it's all based on affordability. The more expensive they were, the higher they went, the harder they fell. Pierce, because it was the least expensive, didn't get as much appreciation, but it also didn't come down as much. Affordability. That's what you're seeing there. You're also seeing that rates matter. Every time rates change dramatically, you see it happen in the prices. That's why we'll be always revealing the totality of the data before we make our next prediction. What I really like, and I think is the most indicative of the market, is the market started this year in January at $694,868.
2023 January.
Of 2023. Yep. December of this year, we finished at $726,206, or 8.8% above the average price we started at. So King did 10.4. Snohomish did 8.8. Oh, guess what? Pierce will do a little bit lower. The closed sales in 2023 of December were down 15.29% versus last December, and a 50% decrease over December of 2021. So most of our market, doesn't matter what county we look in, 2021 was our banner year, and our total number of closings we're literally all the way back to 2011. Again, the number of homes for sale in Snohomish County in 2011 in December of 2022 was 1,359. This December, it was 805. It was almost 50% less. Months of supply is still stupid low. Okay, stupid low, this is a technical term. And what I mean by that is December of 23, it was an average of 1 month of supply. It was at 1.6, and then it went to 1 month. That means in the spring of 24, you're going into weeks of supply. It means, now we're moving into the predictions, we're switching gears. Bidding wars are coming in the spring and in the summer. That's what the math is saying. Supply will be low. Rates will go lower. As the rates go lower, it drives up the demand. If you want to buy, get in now.
So I wanted to make a comment about month of supply as a data point and how important it is. It's telling you how hot the market is. Regardless of all the other data pieces, interest rates, or like what's going on with buyers and sellers and the economy, months of supply is what I, as an investor, look at constantly. I've been waiting for this months of supply number to go up and up and up and up because, if it's 1 month, that means it's high competition. And
Huge.
Guess what? People typically are paying top dollar.
Yes.
There could be bidding wars. Well, back in 2011, this is kind of a good point, piggybacking on what the discussion of King County. I talked about how there was such a high supply in 2011 and low supply right now. What was the months of supply back in 2011? Just to give people an idea. Would you say, if you just guessed?
If I had to guess, there was probably 8.
8 months.
8 or 7.
That's literally 800% more.
Yes, 100%.
So that is so significant as an investor. And I know this because I also built my house in 2012. I wasn't even thinking this savvy. I was just like, wow, prices are so great compared to what it was. And people are willing to do deals. I was making deals that I could never do in 2007, 2008. And one of the markers was months of supply.
Yes.
So if it was 8 back then and it's 1 right now, I'm not saying it's a bad time to buy, but it's signaling to you that there's only one way to go, which is up, 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 and up.
Let's break this down for the listener so they're like on the same page. What the Seattle Metro just showed you, and it shows you in all 3 counties this same data, is that even though rates got so high, 8.2%, and the affordability became so horrible that it was just unaffordable to be able to purchase, that when you're around 1 month, 2 months worth of supply, that is still base level demand in the Seattle Metro, and prices rise. So it could have been 10% and prices probably still wouldn't have gone down because there's enough people moving in, moving out, getting the job, getting married, having the baby, kids going off to college, those life events that cause it to happen. So there's that base level demand caught the Seattle Metro, stabilized prices very quickly. And we know as then rates go down, we move above base level demand, which then will drive prices up. That's the simple version of what we saw right there.
All right. So what's your predictions for Snohomish County?
So expect a minimum of 6% average appreciation, 4% median growth. Expect mild rent growth, to flat. Once again, investors, please watch your performance, keep them very tight. Keep that rent growth really tight. And to summarize, Snohomish County, low supply, still just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 45 minutes at its furthest, 50 minutes at its furthest out of the actual heart of the city of Seattle. And so we expect prices to rise and there to be heavy demand and for our economy to continue, clicking along. The price appreciation in Snohomish, and the whole metro surprised me. It really, really surprised me. I was not betting it would be this high, and I may even be sandbagging on this 6% growth again.
I really want to talk about the what ifs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
The what ifs in
Because I got some curveballs for you.
because that's the totality of the data. And real estate will always move slower than the stock market. So here's the thing. People say, I'm worried about a recession. I'm worried about job loss. The real estate market will move over a 90-day, 6-month, year-long increment. It's an aircraft carrier as it turns. It doesn't whiplash like the stock market. It moves really slow, and you can see it happening. One of the things that you would see happening to know that prices are getting ready to fall and or crash, the level of listing price reductions starts to double or triple. So there's an average level of listing price reductions in any market. This applies to any market, not just Seattle. As that number starts to shoot up, sellers are reducing their price in order to get sold. And the original list to sales price ratio drops below the long-term historical average for the area. Ours is like 98.5. So if all of a sudden that number drops to 96 and you see that for a month, that means prices are going down for the next 3 months. Or, you could be headed into a major correction or a recession. You see this in the data coming at you a mile away. You see bankruptcies rise, you see foreclosures rise, you see listing price reductions, and then you see them selling for less than market value, aka percent of original list price. Let's go to Pierce County. Pierce County is the one just south of King County. It's the most affordable out of the Tri-County area.
Tacoma and surrounding areas.
Tacoma and the surrounding areas, exactly. The average price in Pierce County peaked in May of 2022 at $610,838. In December of 2023, it was $586,854, only 4% off. Pierce County is the most affordable. Oh, I just said that note. So the average price in December of 2022 was $519,920, and the average price in December of 2023 was $586,854. That is a 12.1% increase when I compare month to month in average price. When we look at where this year started, which again, I think is more indicative of the whole market. That's why I did this for all 3 counties. January of 2023, the average price was $549,336. We ended the year in December at $586,854, 6.6% above where we started in average price. So King had the most appreciation, 10.4, 8 point, whatever it was, let's just call it 8. Pierce comes in at 6.6. Affordability. The higher you go, the harder you fall. Okay? And Pierce does not have as many jobs in it as King County and Snohomish County. Boeing occupies Snohomish County, King County. The largest employer in Snohomish County is Boeing. They don't have a Boeing in Pierce County. So that's one of the things to be thinking about. Number of homes sold reflected the same trend in 2022. December, there were 2,188 homes sold. This year in December of 2023, it was 1,656, down 27.68%. The months of supply in Pierce County is also low. So it averaged 1.8 months of supply, and that's exactly where it was in 2022 also.
Would you say that Pierce County is typically just less in demand in general? Is it almost always lagging King and Snohomish County?
Pierce has always been lagging. And then what happened was Tacoma went through its revitalization. Like when we were kids, I mean, honestly, parts of Tacoma were just scary.
Compton.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't want to go there. And then the downtown was really beat up and old. And Tacoma has done a phenomenal job of redoing the waterfront.
Got it. What year was that when it went through the revitalization?
I think that really actually started like coming out of the Great Recession.
Oh, okay.
And the waterfront, they've got boats back there. They built in the new bridges. They put in those new roads. They cleaned up the parks. They brought businesses back. And then they started getting high rises and stuff kind of in that downtown Tacoma going again and revitalized. That then spread out. What also happened was national investors started looking at Tacoma, Washington. It became one of those hotbeds of multifamily markets and just single family rent markets. So investors flooded in from across the nation to Tacoma, Washington based on jobs and future growth and things like that. And that really also drove up its price there in Tacoma. So it was kind of a dual factor that's now supported it having a much higher price than it had before. And that's really all happened in this last decade. So there are still parts of Tacoma where someone in the last decade, no joke, paid $100,000 for a house.
Crazy. It's like our Detroit.
Yes, it was.
But not in a bad way. I'm just saying their real estate market went to there was some houses there was 30, 50, 60,000. Yeah.
And now those same houses are 500, and even like the south areas like Parkland, like here's Tacoma, and Parkland is like a burb of Tacoma. Even those have started hitting 350, 375. And so it's just because Seattle's gotten so expensive. Seattle and Bellevue are like the two centers of our real estate universe. And every ring out from them, it's just a price decrease. So just the further you get from those two cities, the cheaper everything gets. And people say, well, how would I rate this? 10 minutes is $100,000. Every 10 minutes you're on the freeway heading away from Bellevue or Seattle, north or south, $100,000. As soon as you drive down the freeway, $100,000, $100,000, $100,000, $100,000, $100,000. And people are like, no, it doesn't work. No, it totally works. Marysville is approximately 30 minutes north of Seattle. $1 million, well, not really $1 million. It's like $950. And then Marysville is $685.
Yeah. So if it was $1 million in Seattle, it would be potentially $700,000 because it's about
half an hour.
Got it. And which is every 10 minutes.
100,000.
Oh, interesting. Never heard that before.
Just a simple rule of thumb. Now, so let's recap Pierce real quick. So predictions for Pierce is supply is going to continue to be low. The drop in interest rates is going to cause the more demand, which is going to increase prices. So we do expect in Pierce also, because it's already at 1.8, bidding wars again in the spring. I don't know if the bidding wars would continue in the summer in Pierce, but definitely in the spring in the hottest part of the market. Expect a average price growth of 5% and a median price growth of at least 3%. So above trend. I think the rent growth will be slightly better in Pierce than it is, though, in Snohomish and King County, but still expect more mild rent growth in Pierce County. Now I want to just go into like this massive prediction mode for 2024. So if we were to talk about the Seattle Metro and real estate predictions for 2024, and then some of this is also just predictions for the whole housing market because they're really at times intertwined. So the biggest problem in our area is what, my friend?
Lack of supply.
1,000%.
Maybe all over the whole country too.
So that's true in the Seattle Metro and throughout most of the United States, this lack of supply. This lack of supply is going to cause above average appreciation, above average rent growth once we get through this slump. So I believe the first 6 months are low rent growth. But you never know, by the end of the year, it could start ticking up right now. I'm telling you, the data today is mild to low rent growth. The media will continue to be more negative about this lack of supply. And they will look for scapegoats and people to attack. The big bad investor, hedge funds, Wall Street. What people don't realize is when you say real estate investor, the vast majority of every real estate investment is held by a ma and pa investor that owns 1 to 2 units. It's not Wall Street. So when you attack investors, you're attacking ma and pa. And the thing we have to be careful of is if we pass legislation like rent caps. So one piece of legislation that's in Washington State right now, rent caps. If you attack that small ma and pa investor and cause them to get out of the market, you're actually doing the opposite of what you want. See, a hedge fund or an institutional investor is more likely to raise their rent on a regular, consistent basis based on their pro forma versus ma and pa investor. Bob and Betty Smith are going to sit there and go, you know what? They're so nice. Let's just keep the rent the same. For example, I spoke with a couple this weekend who has been renting the same home from a ma and pa investor since 2014. Their rent since 2014 has gone up $500 in the highest rent appreciating market we've ever seen. They are currently under rented by $600 a month. So if you, Washington State, in all your wisdom, and legislatures, if you shove through these rent cap things, you chase out these small mom and pop investors, you will actually kill off some of this affordability. I know I just touched on a hot topic. I'm sorry I oppose rent caps. And yes, I do believe rents are too high and they've gotten very expensive. And inflation has made that rent pinch everyone and make it very painful. But rent caps and removing the free market is not the answer. So Washington State, you will also see more legislation coming because housing is becoming such a problem. In 2023, we saw middle housing get passed, which is the law for, hey, we want duplexes and fourplexes, spread throughout. And the ADU law, I expect more of that legislation to come through. The problem is they're not attacking the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is they have to create supply, not simply pass a couple laws here and there and pat themselves on the back. We've got to get into the permitting, land development, and regulatory processes and fees and timelines in order to get supply up.
In Snohomish County, didn't they pull it back a little bit? The ADU kind of like additions?
They did. So they had an ADU law prior to the state's ADU law. And what it was doing, it was getting outside of their projected growth rate in the rural area. So what they did was they said non-conforming lots in the R5 zone, which would mean they're under 200,000 square feet. They're not 4.5 acres or more. You can't put an ADU on them anymore. They killed that one off. They still allow them on the over 200,000 square feet. This lack of supply will lead to bidding wars throughout the Seattle metro. This lack of supply is going to cause higher than normal appreciation in 2024. So we believe the whole metro will appreciate at approximately 6.5%, with some areas of the metro being as low as 4% and some areas of the metro being as high as 5%. Call us, send us a message. We will tell you what's happening in your area. P.S. The closer you get to Seattle and the closer you get to Bellevue, expect higher appreciation. We also don't expect high appreciation on the upper end or the luxury end of that market. We expect mild or flat rent growth in 2024, but we expect higher rent growth in 2025 and 2026 due to the lack of permitting and land development applications for multifamily coming into the pipeline now. Investors, there's a window of opportunity in 2024 for you to buy multifamily while cap rates are increasing and interest rates are getting ready to trend down, and supply will then be diminished over the following 2 years. Nice opportunity to hit a nice little double, maybe a triple. Just the bat's going to rattle a little right there. Rates are 6.7 today when I looked before recording this. We expect rates to be in the low 6s by the end of 2024. And if we're lucky, they could go into the 5s. How would they get into the 5s? They would get into the 5 if the Fed does do their 3 rate cuts and some of the mortgage spread that's in there, that's the premium, gets pulled out by servicers right now because they're feeling more confident on the market. That could actually suck us into the high 5s. The Fed is telegraphing 3 rate cuts for 2024. The market is predicting 6. The Fed is saying higher for longer. We may not do it till second quarter. The market's saying it starts in March. We'll see who wins. But we know lower rates are coming. And so our prediction is about 15% more transactions in the Seattle metro in 2024 due to these lower rates, to there simply being more affordability. This affordability, every notch in affordability also unlocks a little bit of supply. It removes it from that lock-in effect. We expect the commercial market to continue to be beat up. Office is going to be painful. Large multifamily is going to be painful. When I say large multifamily, I'm talking 50 units and above. That 50 unit and below multifamily, still pretty hot. We expect it to be pretty hot. We also expect commercial debt to continue rising for the foreseeable future. Commercial debt is still trending up because of the Fed believing there is a contagion in the commercial market. Wall Street also believing that the commercial market is headed towards pain. So what banks are doing is they are increasing their spread and increasing their origination fees and increasing their tightening and lending standards. So commercial will continue to get pinched until that happens. If you want to see more about that, we recorded a whole episode about how we think the Fed basically believes commercial real estate is a ticking time bomb. Part of the reason that office is going to get hit is office generally has like a 3 to 5 year lease. Where was the economy 3 to 5 years ago?
COVID? Well, 3 years ago.
Just ignore COVID.
Oh, okay.
Was it smoking hot or freezing cold?
Well, it depends on what part of COVID.
But ignore COVID. Smoking hot.
Yeah, smoking hot.
So nobody inked an office lease during COVID. But anyone who inked one right before, or even 6 months afterwards, they did not ink at a discounted rate. They inked an office lease at the most expensive office lease rates we've ever had.
Was this speculative back then?
It's because the money was so cheap. Because the debt was so cheap, so that causes lease rates to go up. So all office lease rates right now are literally based on 3% debt when nobody worked from home. All of them are coming due in 24, 25, and 26. It has to go through that pain. Multifamily, those wannabe syndicators, wannabe investors, leverage to the hilt, thinking I'm going to get a 3.5 cap and I'm going to get 3.5% interest rate. And that's going to be my exit. That debt's coming due. We got to pay part of this piper. We also believe that cap rates in commercial are going to continue to rise. I want to flip it over and project some awesomeness and some hope. There's massive opportunity. Flipping, new construction, land development. Why? It's at a low right now. When things are at a low, it's our 2011 again. It's time to start. Don't be dumb. Go in with reserves. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying these things, but I believe there's opportunity in that right now due to the lack of supply. And we just went through all the supply numbers. It looks like inflation's going to get a 2 handle on the front of it. I believe in 2024, though, the consumer does run out of money. The consumer runs out of credit. I do believe we are heading into a mild recession. I don't believe that's going to affect prices in the Seattle Metro because we already proved even when supply is low, prices still rise in our area. I believe Airbnbs and short-term rentals are going to suck, both here in the Seattle Metro and throughout the U.S. What happened to the Airbnb market is we went from being an investor to being a massive speculator. And everyone and their mother said, oh, and I'm making fun of the people here in the Seattle Metro, well, I got to own an Airbnb in Phoenix or in Florida or in Texas. And what they really wanted was a second home. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to justify it functioning as an Airbnb. So they took the most aggressive, highest Airbnb rental rates and projected them out like they would just magically continue and didn't factor in, oh, wait a second, maybe this was a boom because of COVID, cheap money, things of that nature. So that piper's got to get paid. That's going to bring some inventory to the market. It's going to cause some of them to be converted to long-term rentals. It's going to cause some of them to be sold at a loss, and they're going to pay the difference. I talked to a short-term property manager, and they were renting a property for someone in the Phoenix Metro, and the property lost them over $100,000. There's only so many years you can lose $100,000, and you will instantly sell that property or change your strategy, sell something, put more money against it, something of that nature. I think people are going to continue using HELOCs as a means to access equity, and that's going to be better than refinancing. That way they can keep their 3% or their 4% mortgage, but get that equity so they can play with. I believe that more people are going to go buy that second home and keep that first one as a rental. So think about this. If you've got a mortgage that's a 3% or a 4% or even maybe a 2.75, but you're a good W-2 earner and you can qualify for a mortgage, in today's environment, you're probably going to keep that one as a rental and just go buy another one.
So then that wouldn't put listings onto the market. Oh, that's interesting. I never heard that before.
Keeping less supply.
So everybody assumed that lowering interest rates just close enough would let people kind of escape. But I mean, the Airbnb situation, a perfect example, everybody wants to make more money. Right.
Yes.
And everybody would like to cash flow and
Yes.
become an investor. So that is interesting that it's a lock-in effect in a different form.
It's a lock-in effect that is compounded by fear of loss and greed, which are amazingly powerful emotions. We have spoken with right here in the beginning of January 6 sellers who are all considering keeping the first property and just simply buying another one. Because when they go, well, I can't let go of it, it's that fear of loss. It's like they're losing something because they know how good the rate is. We believe there's going to be less business credit and more small businesses are going to go out of business. I say that with reverence. That hurts my heart. We need to support small business more. I hope something steps in and helps that. I'd love to see Wall Street step in and support small business. Maybe some government lending programs, maybe community banks. But I believe small businesses are going to go through a massive credit crunch this year. Unemployment's going to rise. GDP will slow down. And prices are going to stay higher on housing. And everything's going to be more expensive for the consumer than they want it to be. The consumer wants housing prices to crash, and that's not happening. But the consumer is also being pinched at the gas pump, on the groceries, on their car insurance, on all of their bills. And so that housing expense is weighing more heavily on them. That's why we're saying rent growth will be flat this year. Now we're going to move into what you wanted to talk about.
Echoing Powell, it's all data dependent. It's all based off of what actually happens both in our economy, in society, in the world. And that's why even it's interesting hearing your predictions about 2024 and 2025. It seems right now, and I think partly COVID, a lot of volatility.
Yes.
Even the Great Recession, it just went down and then it went back up. But that was span of years. We're seeing volatility in 12-month segments.
Yes. Much faster.
Yeah. And that is directly related to the crazy, just never experienced thing that we went through in 2020, right? Both on the pandemic side, we have experienced that, but not having the tool to completely stop what should have probably happened, in previous eras, and money printing and all that kind of stuff. So that's why for me, it's almost as if you have to take everything that you're saying with a grain of salt to a certain degree.
We have to review the totality of the data. So what would cause this to crash? What causes this to break? What really kills this? And the true one is massively rising unemployment, negative GDP, and disinflation. In other words, prices dropping. People don't understand when they wish for, I want prices to go back. Our economy is based on the consumer, which means prices have to nicely, easily trend up at a they want to hit 2%, at a 2% rate sustained nice over a long period of time. If prices drop dramatically, the whole wheels can fall off of this, and all of a sudden the economy breaks and is not fixable. And we do go into the major recession. So when someone says, I wish prices would go down, please be careful what you wish for. That is the demise of the U.S. economy. A rapid rise in rates, okay? So what the Fed did prove to us when they raised 500 basis points in that really short period of time, the consumer does not like a rapid rise in rates. So a rapid rise in rates caused prices to fall in 2022 for Seattle Metro housing prices. If a rapid rise in rates, let's say inflation reared its ugly head and rates had to be quickly raised again, that would cause prices to fall. They're not responding to the rate, they're responding to the rapid change of the rate. And it goes back to what we were just talking about. That's what creates that fear. And we go into Chicken Little, oh, the sky is falling. And then everything starts to fall apart. A large rise in inventory. P.S. If you're not in the Seattle Metro, you can watch these things in your local area. It will be the same. a big rise in foreclosures.
Aren't we seeing signs of it right now?
We're seeing signs of it, but they're kicking the can down the field. So they're not actually foreclosing on them. The delinquency is happening, but they're not foreclosing on them and bringing to the market. We talked about that in the FHA one. A rise in bankruptcy, low consumer confidence, increased lending standards. So here's one thing that's really interesting. Once again, remember, we're a consumer economy. Real estate is also a consumer economy segment inside of that economy. What's happening for lending standards in real estate right now is if you have good credit, they're making it easy on you. If you have marginal credit, they're actually making it harder on the marginal credit buyer to purchase right now and more difficult. So if the economy stumbles for 90 days, all lenders could increase their lending standards, which would then freeze prices. And if that, of course, became too hard to where that first-time home buyer couldn't enter the market or the move-up buyer couldn't, that doesn't have perfect credit, that takes too much demand away. Overbuilding, not happening here in the Seattle Metro, but in the South. Large parts of the South, there is overbuilding. Speculative bubbles. Once again, you're not seeing these speculative bubbles, but those markets where investors gobbled up 20% of the market, 15% of the market, those could go through speculative bubbles. Politics and elections. So third quarter of 2024, as we roll into fourth quarter, and then the election starts to come out, elections cause problems in real estate. It's just fear of the unknown. So it causes the market to slow. This is going to be one of those really bad ones. We're getting the two candidates nobody likes. And so everyone's going to be mad about everything because no one's really happy. And then there's going to be a lot of mudslinging going back and forth. And it looks like it's going to be Biden and Trump. That's going to cause a lot of fighting and a lot of fear. If these new politicians start creating legislation that prohibits housing, that doesn't promote housing, that increases fees to build housing, that removes economic incentive. If this recession so once again, I feel like we're going to go through some type of mild recession this year. If the recession is not mild and it goes really big, that could be a problem. Natural disasters, okay? That could cause prices to change. And then, global economic factors, shipping, supply chains, China, wars.
This is the big list of watch out for this. It's like the ultimate fear list.
This is the ultimate fear list, but you can see it coming. That's the whole point to this.
You said that you're seeing signs of a lot of these now.
Yes.
Yeah. And even just the politics one, I think a huge majority of the world is going through major political elections.
Yes.
So when there's potential elections that rock the boat, there's policy changes.
Yes.
And then we're already going into this year with 2 wars, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Right?
Major conflicts.
Major conflicts.
Yes.
And then the signs of some underneath the surface economic turmoil.
Yes.
Or potential turmoil.
And I know you do too, this is why we're good friends. I look at and read financial news every day. And what you see in the numbers, in the totality of the data, is you see the bubblings of major problems. And you see them just percolating over here. And what that means is if the Fed cuts way too late, these problems, these minor problems, become major ones. If the Fed doesn't cut, these problems turn into recessions. If the Fed cuts at the right time or even a little too early, these problems simmer down and just go away. That's why a prediction is a prediction, but we have to keep watching. You've got to be vigilant. You got to know the market. You got to know the signals inside the market.
So if things go south, what should investors and buyers do? I know that that's all going to be based off of the situation, but generally speaking.
I think generally speaking, whether things go south or not, this is the type of market where you solidify your position at your job. You go talk to the boss, the manager, you're the friend, you show up, you're nice to all your coworkers, you hang out.
Don't move jobs.
Don't move jobs. You cut frivolous expenses. You may not need Hulu, Netflix, Disney, Paramount, Peacock all at the same time. You to increase your cash reserves, increase your savings, increase your liquidity or your access to that cash. And you may have some assets that you may need to sell off in order to get into that position just in case. And then once again, depending on the severity of these, some of these is all bets are off. It's just game over. It doesn't matter anyway. But that's just a good recipe right there, is be smart, don't be dumb, and be cautiously optimistic and conservative.
And data dependent.
Based on the totality of the data.
All right, there you go.